Yes, it'll be close to 46 years. It will be 46 years at the end of this term. Then I joined public service at the Cameron County Courthouse and then the state of Texas for 34 years. But I think the greatest thing is to be able to travel our great state in every region of the state and meet wonderful people like you. That is my greatest gift that I have as a public official and from God himself. And I thank God every day. And we will be praying for Mr. Gamboa. We do that every day. I would like to present a couple of awards.
Fell in there anyways. They wanted to be together. I took him up.
I would like to have the LULAC State Director,
Give him the
Torres,
bag.
back up here on the
I didn't bring mine either.
Okay. I was very inspired when I walked into this hall. I was very inspired because I heard there was a lot of history here, and I think there is rich in history. But that history couldn't have happened, Don Luis, without leadership like yours and others in this room. Leadership and the leaders that are here today, and many who no longer are with us, made it possible for us to have a better quality of life in this great state for Hispanics. That's what LULAC stands for. That's what they've done. Leadership is not the ability to tell people what to do.
Registration.
Leadership is the ability to make people want to do the right thing through example. And I'm so happy to be able to still serve not only Senate District 27, but the whole state of Texas, and serve, with State Representative Leal, a class act. And I have a son in the House, her colleague, Eddie
Yes.
Lucio
Woo!
III. And I look at my son on TV, and then I see the representative come on, so eloquent in how she speaks and addresses the issues. And it gives me great joy. I can't breathe at times. I'm overjoyed to see young leadership like that. I want to present a couple of items before I make some remarks. This flag that was dedicated over the state capitol is presented to Luca Torres, LULAC State Director for Distinguished Service by State Representative Eddie Lucio and Representative Eddie Lucio III.
Wow. That's awesome.
We have obviously beautiful
I think she went to
certificates that go with
the
these
times
flags. And I have one other flag, and this one, I'll go ahead and give it to your director also, but this is presented to you all. This flag flown over the state capitol, the League of United Latin American Citizens in celebration of their 90th anniversary by State Senator Eddie Lucio. Now, most important, there are symbols, obviously, symbols of greatness, symbols of leadership. As I mentioned, this young lady has led through example, and we're very proud of her. So I want to present her an official gavel from the Texas Senate. And this gavel obviously will remind her of the respect that we have for her and the dignity by which she serves and the respect she has for her fellow human beings. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
I just don't know what to say. I am so deeply honored. And I want, like I said before, to receive all of these wonderful accolades and honor on behalf of our board, our state board, our leaders, all the members of LULAC who work extremely, extremely hard, and we will be giving them awards and recognize them today. So, Senator Lucio, you are the best, and how can we ever thank you for everything that you have done for LULAC throughout the many years of service. God bless you. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Chief Warrant Officer Rodriguez also. I think one of the
I'll
most
help you carry
important
half.
things in our lives
I'll
is
carry half.
the fact that we honor our country. And we honor those men and women who have served us with dignity and respect in time of war and in time of peace.
You got that one right there?
There's so many that have received the Silver Star, Congressional Medal of Honor, the Purple Hearts, muchos Latinos that got the pleasure of knowing over the 46, 45 years now that I've been in public office.
Wow.
One of them was Mr. Lopez from San Antonio, who came in from Mexico. He was a dreamer, 8 years old by himself. And he's got a story that I told at the Capitol the other day. I also want to thank David Cruz. I didn't think I was going to be motivated here tonight as much as I have. I knew I would be motivated because I'm with leaders. But when he started talking, he got my attention. And I certainly appreciate everything you've said here tonight.
Yeah.
The young people, I will be talking to you in a minute. And I want you to go look up a little movie, A Class Apart. I want you to see that movie. Some of you have. But I won't tell you what it's about. I want you to find out for yourself. Because it's about the men and women in this room who have fought hard for your rights, for your freedom, and for everything that we stand for as a country, as a nation. I would like to say one more time I'll call him Don Luis. Luis is a very important name in our family. Uncle Louis. I got two assistants named Luis. I got cousins named Luis Carlos and Juan Luis. Luis is a very popular name. So Don Luis, you reminded me of St. Paul. St. Paul, before he was beheaded, stood up for Jesus Christ after he killed many Christians. He said, I have fought the good fight. And he had. I finished the race. And he did. More important, I kept the faith. We are. It's so important for us to keep the faith. It's so important for us to respect one another and to love one another, to care and understand one another, and fight hard. Never yield. But there are times when we sit down and we try to negotiate, I'll use that word, try to find a middle ground so that we can come home with something that is important for our children, our seniors, our men and women in uniform, our veterans. And those are the things that I cherish the most in my work. To be able to look back and look at the legislation that I've been able to shepherd. I was told to speak for a few minutes, and I want you to know that you're the first. I'm going to have 31 meetings back home, and I'm going to travel my district. And I'm going to be talking to each one of my communities that I represent. But I want to share with you what I will be sharing with them so that you can be the first in our state to know what I feel came out good in this session. I am very deeply humbled by your invitation to be your keynote speaker tonight. That is why I would like to thank my friend Isidro Garza Jr., whose presence at the Capitol is there, along with others. Isidro, congratulations for doing a great job for this education. Being the co-chair on education for inviting me to be here with you this evening. Being the vice chair of the Senate Education Committee myself, I jumped at the opportunity to join you on this historic night. Very historic night. LULAC is an organization that means so much to so many. With its foundations in Corpus Christi, 1929, the League of United Latin American Citizens has a beautiful mission to improve the lives of Hispanic Americans, and in doing so, it's my belief that you improve the lives of all Americans. I may not have known it, but LULAC was working for me in the early 1950s. When I was a kid, I was one of 10 kids. We're 6 brothers and 4 sisters. Living in public housing back in Brownsville, Texas, I dreamed of becoming a teacher. 7 of us became teachers. 9 of us graduated from the university, thanks to my mom and dad. But LULAC contributed to a national conversation about educating Latinos. And although my high school counselor, and this actually happened when I went to see her, my high school counselor told me I should become a mechanic. I very politely told her I barely knew how to put gas in the car. I said, I had the opportunity to go to college to be a teacher, I told her, in the face of discrimination, which existed in 1963, as you well know, during the Civil Rights Movement. I bet the college professor, though, and I had a college professor who told me to sit in the back of the classroom because I was a Mexican American, never would have guessed that I now sit in the front row of the Texas Senate. I couldn't understand that, to tell you the truth, because my dad was a disabled American veteran of foreign war, and he preached Americanism, patriotism, each day of his life. He wanted us to respect one another, to love one another. He was a man of great faith. And I just couldn't understand my professor say, go to the back of the room. I want you white people up here, you black athletes in the middle, and he pointed at me. Well, I didn't stay in that room. Long story. As the only Hispanic senator sharing a major standing Senate committee and as the 3rd highest seniority serving member of the Texas Senate, it is truly an honor and privilege to address you tonight, because there is a lot of history here and there's a lot of leadership here tonight. As many of you are aware, the 86th legislature just came to an end May the 27th. In all, it was one of the most productive legislative sessions in my 32 and a half years of being a state legislator. We had a session marked with many highs, and of course there's some lows. And I know you keep up with those lows as well, and I'm with you, fighting to make sure we up them to some highs. You will be glad to know that a number of the issues that are found in Texas LULAC's legislative agenda for the 86th legislature were addressed during the 140 days of our 2019 legislative session. Foremost, our 3 state leaders, Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and House Speaker Dennis Bonham, did an excellent job in balancing the priority issues which dominated the legislative session: property tax reform, public education, finance reform, and passing a responsible, compassionate state budget. I hope you understand that there's 55% of the students in our public schools in Texas are Hispanic. Yeah. And that we have a moral obligation. We have an incredible obligation and responsibility to address their needs. They're going to be the future workforce. They're going to be our future leaders in public office. They're going to lead our state and country forward in the right direction. In all, as many have noted, Texans will be able to keep more money in their pockets while more money was pumped into our public education system. In doing so, the 2019 session will be remembered as a session in which many bills directly impacting Texans were successfully passed, having much of our time focused on fixing Texas's archaic public school finance system. In fact, we passed a state budget which invests $11.5 million to reduce property taxes, increase teacher pay, and increase state aid to our school districts. As my dear friend, Senate Finance Chair Jay Nelson reported to us, approximately $5 billion were provided to reduce the property tax rate in 2020 and adds a 2.5% compression in 2021. $3.6 billion were included to reduce the state's recapture system by nearly half. Recapture reallocates, as you all know, locally raised tax revenue for property-rich districts and provides it to property-poor districts to assist in funding public education. We also appropriated $2 billion to enhance compensation for teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses, and provided priority to educators with 6 or more years of service. The $2.4 billion were allotted to fund enrollment growth for an additional 65,000 students per year. $600 million to ensure the teacher retirement system is actuarially sound, and $1.1 billion to provide retired teachers with a 13th check, which they fought very hard to get, and I'm so happy with what we got. In public education, we overhaul our state's education funding formulas while increasing more funding to the school districts with the highest proportion of needy students. We funded full-day pre-K for low-income families, and we extended the school year from summer programs for at-risk students. And that's something that I am so much involved with. Making sure that our at-risk students do not fall through the cracks. And if they do, all of us here must reach in those cracks and pull them out and help them and support them each step of the way. We did all this while not forgetting our retired teachers. An increase of $230 million was included for the teacher retirement system, was included to maintain current health care benefits and premiums for retired teachers as well. As I touched upon earlier, through our property tax reform, we provided taxpayers protections against taxes which rise over 3.5% of the previous year's revenue. Not only did we slow the growth of tax bills, we reduced ISD tax rates. Next year, rates will be declined by an average of 8 cents per $100 value of valuation and 13 cents in 2021. In all, our $250.7, we have grown, our $250.7 billion state budget provides critical funding that addresses many of our state priorities, including $3.5 million to expand human trafficking section at the Attorney General's office to handle more prosecution. This is a section of the Office of Attorney General, which I was proud to establish through legislation 3 sessions ago. $1.9 million to provide additional veterans claims representation and counseling services at the Texas Veterans Commission. $346.9 million for women's health care services, having funded a new all-time high. That's the highest we've ever done for women's health care today. Also, there was $341.6 million for early childhood intervention program, an increase of over $50 million from last session.
Good.
$1.2 billion, an increase of $75.3 million in all funds for food and nutritional programs at the Agriculture Department, including the surplus food program, home delivered meals for at-risk adults and children, school lunch programs, school breakfast program, and after-school care programs, all of which have been involved with over the years. In higher education, we provided increases of $486 million formulas for higher education. Now, $201 million to general academic institutions, and $80 million for the Texas Grant Program, which goes to our children, to ensure 70% of eligible students receive a $5,000 award. We also provide an additional $3 million to support basic civil legal services for veterans and their families. $5 million went for a pilot project to identify and provide special representation for indigent dependents with mental illness. An additional $5 million in grant to counties to support indigent defense. $3.7 million to create 9 new child protection courts, increasing capacity for child protective service cases in high need areas in our state, and an additional $5.5 million to enhance services to victims of family violence. In public safety, we provided $5.3 million for education and vocational pilot programs for offenders at the Department of Criminal Justice. $5.3 million for anti-human trafficking related efforts at establishments licensed by the Alcohol Beverage Commission, and $27.9 million for anti-child sex and human trafficking efforts and anti-gang squads at the Department of Public Safety. As you can see, many of these items mentioned in the Texas LULAC's legislative agenda are addressed and touched upon in our state budget. So thank you all for your leadership. In terms of economic development, I authored comprehensive reform to our Texas Private Activity Bond Program with the passage of Senate Bill 1474. Please listen closely to this, because this is hallmark. I've been working 6 years to pass this legislation, and thank God we finally did it. In doing so, we allowed Texas to maximize the bond financing program and to provide more effective, more efficient, and more resilient bonding atmosphere in our state. What does this mean to all of us? The modernization of the private activity bond program translates to increased affordable housing opportunities and increased student loans being offered by the state and higher education authorities, having a bonding allocation floor of $100 million for loans for students and their parents. This yields unprecedented economic development, meaningful job creation, increased home ownership and housing opportunity, and critical community revitalization throughout the state. I couldn't be happier. Rest assured that we also took care of those communities in need which are economically distressed. And with the passage of Senate Joint Resolution 79, which I authored, Texas voters will be allowed to decide whether to provide $200 million in evergreen bonding authority to fund the statewide economic distress areas programs. If approved by voters this coming November, communities lacking critical water and wastewater services could be assisted with grants and low-interest loans. We need LULAC to spread the word to support this important referendum in the next election. So with your help, we will see $200 million for distressed communities around the state. We also took care of another vulnerable population that is dear to my heart as a former educator, our school children. The senseless acts of violence that we have seen across the nation need to stop. And we need to take action. It goes without saying that addressing school safety and student mental health was a priority of the legislature and were addressed through a number of bills, most notably Senate Bill 11, which I was a co-author of, and House Bill 18. In all, we now will have better prevention and attention to mental health. And let me share 3 bills with you, what they do. One of the bills includes mental and behavioral health focus in student health curriculum and other school programs. The next one creates a statewide and regional assessment of the availability of mental health resources, which will help the state identify gaps and direct additional resources to underserved regions. And the third one creates a Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium, leveraging the expertise of institutions of Higher Education to make recommendations for the provision of mental health services to Texas students. We will also have stronger mitigation and school safety measures, and that the legislation passed there, 3 of them was most significant. One requires planning and protocols for a broad range of campus emergencies and threats. The second allocates $100 million to districts for safety upgrades, and the third one broadens training for school law enforcement officers to include the escalation techniques and positive behavioral interventions. Assisting survivors of Hurricane Harvey, and I know some of you were affected, was a priority of mine and the Texas legislature. That is why I authored a bill to expand a tax provision which first established a few sessions ago to assist then victims of Hurricanes Ike and Dolly, as well as those of the Bastrop wildfires. With this bill, my bill is Senate Bill 812, any current and future victim of any disaster, natural or man-made disaster, who is assisted with federal funds to rebuild their homes through the state-sponsored housing recovery program will not, I'm going to repeat this, will not be taxed out of their home for any repairs or rebuilding. Rather, their homes will be taxed at the value prior to the disaster and can only increase through the normal valuation. That's an important bill for all of us. In this manner, we prevent victims who repair their homes from being victimized again through their local property taxes. Being the largest and oldest Hispanic organization in the United States, LULAC is in a critical position to change the political landscape in our state. And nobody knows that better than you. Not only can you continue to advance legislative agendas and initiatives to engender greater economic conditions for minorities and increase educational attainment, you can leave a bigger footprint and political influence by ensuring that nuestra gente, our people, not only register to vote, but also fully participate in the upcoming census that is around the corner. That will take us to the promised land, when we can have representation in our local, state, and national offices that will listen once and for all to the cries of people, to our neighbors of Mexico and others. I remember one of our meetings went to about 3:30 in the morning. It was for the Dreamers, and there was a sub committee that I was on, 2 Republicans and myself, Democrat. After a long day and all night debate, I lost the fight 2-1. But we kept on fighting, and that bill didn't make it through. And I thank my colleagues in the House. I thank others who fight so hard to make sure that Dreamers and others who want to come to this country because they're being prosecuted and their families are being exploited and so many horrible things they're suffering with are coming to our borders. It is a moral obligation on our part to make sure that if they're hungry, we feed them. They're thirsty, we give them water, good, clean water. If they're naked, that we give them our clothes.
Yes.
And if they're homeless, that we provide the shelter that a human being deserves. I could obviously go on and on, but I want to finish by letting you all know that I really appreciate the leadership in this room. With more than 1,000 LULAC councils nationwide, your organization can be ground zero for Hispanics to be the leaders in all levels of government, as I mentioned. So I commend you for everything that you have done: education, civil rights, health, and employment for Hispanics. My hat's off to you for the countless of opportunities you have made possible for our students by providing nearly $1 million in scholarships and so much more. But the message tonight is for our young people here. You're our future. And as I was sitting there listening to these great speakers that came before me, I started to add up the number of years they possibly could be part of this organization. And it really numbers in the hundreds of years. If you look at the accomplishments that we have witnessed and experienced because of LULAC, then a person like me who also shares front rows in certain fights that we have for our people and all people, you can appreciate the hard work, the long hours, and at one point in our lives, our joints start hurting, our ankles start hurting, our backs start hurting, but we continue on, as St. Paul said. We continue the good fight. We continue to do our best to finish the race, and we never, ever lose our faith. May God bless you all. Thank you for affording me an opportunity to speak with you.